Hey there viewers, thank you for tuning in to Supermariodiagnostics once again. Today we are working on a 1998 Jaguar Vanden Plas. I believe it falls under the XJ series. And the customer's concern is that, well, it does crank no start. I actually got started with testing. The first thing I did was check fuel pressure, and it was at spec, which is around 44 psi. And I went ahead and did a quick check on the ignition and injection system and found something that I thought was a little weird. Now, I'm not 100% familiar with these vehicles. It's not like I see them every day. It's a 98. It's an old car. Let's put that out there. There was no codes in the system. Excuse me. And doing the ignition and against injection, this is what I saw. Might not seem like much, but to me something stands out. Now, I don't know if this is normal. I've never seen any other car do it, and considering that these are like simple engines, I don't think this is normal. So looking at this, we can see our number one, we're hooked up. I was about to go in cylinder, kind of everywhere right now. I do apologize for that, but I was about to go in cylinder and decided to pick up the camera. But the first thing I did was fuel pressure checked out. Then I did injection and coil on number one, found this, and decided to go in cylinder just to rule out any kind of, I want to see where the coil fires according to TDC. But I do think we have an issue here with an input, and we see that our green is our injection, our red is our coil, and we see 3 injections per coil firing, which is too much in my opinion. That's extremely rich. Now I pulled out the spark plug and it is wet, so well, it doesn't look that wet now. It's been out for a little while, but it was soaking wet when I first took it out and it smelled like pure fuel. I could try to crank it over, but believe me, this thing does not run. Of course, I've tried to put some brake plane in the throttle body, but that didn't cause it to run or anything like that. I also checked to see if the throttle body was sticking. It was a little bit stuck with the key off. I just unjammed it a bit, made sure with live data that we could see activity at the throttle body. By the way, just in case anybody was wondering, I had to use both scan tools. I usually like to use the Autel IM608, but this time around the IM608 had no live data for me, and the top down actually did. So I was pretty impressed by that. Well, anyway, that was just a little quick side note. Let's go ahead and go with the in cylinder. I'm going to set it all up and do the test. Pretty much all I'm going to do is hook up this transducer to number one cylinder and ground out my coil using a test light so that we can have the ignition waveform, and just to quickly check to make sure that everything is okay there. It's just one of those things where if I end up having a timing issue, I could just compare to the other bank and take it from there. All right, so we've got our in cylinder capture, and right off the bat we can see there are issues here. Here we have an ignition firing before top dead center, and over here we have an ignition firing after top dead center. I do apologize for the glare. That is not good. That is not good at all. This is going to require a teardown. Not only that, but check out the amount of vacuum we're getting here as a result of a leakage or timing issue. The intake valve is closing later than it should, and the piston's already above a certain level where normally would be when the intake valve closes, and it comes up to top dead center, pulls it way back down into vacuum as a result. So it doesn't necessarily mean that it's a leak. Leaning towers tend to be leaks, and we are seeing leaning towers here, but it could also be a result of an intake valve timing issue. We could check bank to bank real quick. I do want to do this real quick. Let's put one right there, one ruler right there, and wow, that intake valve seems to be closing like almost at the middle there. I'm used to seeing it maybe 40 to 60 degrees after top dead center. It is more or less 80-ish, I would say 70 to 80 degrees after top dead center. But that means, this all means nothing unless we check against the opposite bank. We can already see, due to the ignition timing, that there is an issue with timing. So I went ahead in cylinder on both banks, and they both matched. They both had low compression. I don't know if you saw that before, but they both have low compression, and this was enough for us to seek approval to remove the valve cover and look at timing. The point of the video is kind of like the Rolls Royce. It's like, you don't know how the car's going to react. Is it, when you have a timing issue, you don't know if it's going to just stop giving injector pulses. Is it going to give too much? How is it going to react? You don't know. We don't know. I'm not familiar with this vehicle. I don't see it every single day. So when I'm confronted with this is actually the first time I ever even have anything to do with timing on one of these. We don't know how it's going to react. So this is the first time I actually am confronted with this particular situation. A lot of people would be just like, you should have just taken off the valve cover and this and that. When you're confronted with something for the first time, you have to take it at face value. You have to gather the data and try to think of how the ECM is thinking. Is it seeing something wrong in the cam signal? Is it seeing that timing is off? No codes, no sense of direction on this one. You just kind of have to go with it. So that being said, I went ahead and took off this valve cover, and here's what we got. Looking at service information, we could see that on top dead center, we're supposed to put a timing tool in which these flat pieces right here on these cams are perfectly horizontal or parallel, so to speak, with the engine itself. So this is supposed to be facing perfectly up. It is late. If I keep rotating that crank, that is late. Now I didn't notice that on the exhaust valve opening that it was late or not. But what led me to remove the valve cover, it wasn't prior experience. It was somebody on the Automotive Waveform Exchange group in Facebook, believe it or not, one of the most useful groups, automotive groups out there. One guy had asked for the same cam crank correlation. I couldn't find a cam crank correlation. One guy said intake valve closing should happen at about exactly 45 degrees. We saw it around 70. We saw that it was late. We had suspected it from the get-go. I took a cam and crank regardless because I thought that maybe we could find a known good, but I couldn't find a known good. But that was enough for me, like the in-cylinder plus the behavior of the injectors plus the way that we started. Actually, I didn't show you that. I don't know if I showed you that, but just in case, I'll repeat it again. Here are the top dead centers. One of them is happening before top dead center. One of them is happening after. One of them again before. Guys, that's enough for me to think timing. Documentation is key for me though. So I wanted to get everything I could. I started out at first with no in-cylinder. We looked at ignition versus injection, and then we went ahead and went in-cylinder in order to justify further disassembly. This came from another shop. This was attempted to be, this diagnosis was attempted before by another shop, but I saw the Schrader valve for the fuel pressure at the rail. The Schrader valve was loosened up. It was, you could tell they tried to do something there, but where do you go from there? Like, if you don't have any experience with it, if you don't have, you checked your fuel, I disconnected the mass airflow, the basics. Not that I depend on that, but you check your basics. Where do you go from there? You're hoping that somebody has a known good. It's the practice. I gotta say, everybody who knows this channel knows that I love the scope. Take it or leave it. Some of you are probably gonna click away. That's fine, but hear me out on this. We look at enough in cylinders, you start to notice where the intake valve closings are supposed to happen, where the exhaust valve openings are supposed to happen, where the ignition compared to top dead center is supposed to happen. Well, you start to notice these things. And once you start getting used to it, you can start suspecting things, having some kind of sense of direction instead of just winging it and you know, handing it over to another person or another shop. That may be your reputation on the line. Who knows? So if you can take anything away from this video, is practice, 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 so that when you are confronted with a vehicle you've never seen before or never had this particular scenario with before, you can still handle it. You can still confront it and come out winning in the end. Now, we'll see if they go with the timing. If not, this is where the video will end. If they do go with it, I will give you guys a known good cam and crank and in-cylinder waveform for your record keeping in case you ever see this engine. I know it's an older vehicle. You're probably thinking, when am I ever going to see this? You might see it. You might see it. So never. The point of the video isn't the age of the vehicle, it's the behavior of the vehicle. It's what happens. What does the computer do when it sees that timing is off? Does it shut off injector pulse? Does it shut off spark like some do? Does it freaking pulse 3 times for every top dead center of one cylinder? You know? So keep that in mind. I hope this was useful. I appreciate you all for taking the time to watch this video, and yeah, till next time.